Welcome to the Ultimate Life television program, brought to you by Pastor Gracious Selassie Awiye of Treasure House ICGC, where you are treasured and not trashed.
He gets you on your feet when his presence comes. They say this is the pre-incarnate Jesus that Abraham saw. Look at verse 26 and 27. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High," or servants of the Most High God, "come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Nebuchadnezzar then accepts that this is the God of gods. Nebuchadnezzar then accepts that this is the God of gods. Verse 28 and 30. 28 to 30, forgive me. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. You see, if Jesus was accused of not caring, I'm in good company, because not even Jesus could care for everybody. And you can start to feel they don't care. I come early, I serve, I give money. Pastor doesn't even come to say hello. The devil is warring against your soul because he's trying to get you to look at people as though the people are throwing you into the fire. But actually, that fire is going to serve the purposes of God in your life. Don't get a Martha spirit about you. Any length of time in church, you must know you are going to have conflict. The American Psychological Association did something very interesting. They did a survey and an analysis of 11 orchestras. They went into the orchestra and they asked the people, "Tell us how you feel about each other." The percussionists were viewed as insensitive, unintelligent, and hard of hearing. The string players were viewed as arrogant, stuffy, but unathletic, because they just sit down all the time. The orchestra members overwhelmingly choose loud as the primary adjective to describe the brass players. The orchestra members overwhelmingly chose loud as the primary adjective to describe the brass players. And woodwind players seem to be held in high esteem, described as quiet and meticulous, though a bit egotistical. The article goes on to say, with such widely divergent personalities, percussionists, how could an orchestra ever come together to make wonderful music? The answer is very simple. They get their eyes on the conductor and they submit their wills to the conductor. You see, if you think people are putting you in the fire, if you think leaders are hurting you, you will live with offenses. You will live with unforgiveness. And you will try and attack those trying to put you in the fire, instead of getting into the fire and keeping your eyes on Jesus. Faith often comes under fire, but it is only fully matured in the fire. Faith often comes under fire, but it is only fully matured in the fire. Your faith comes under fire, but God uses it to do something in you. Every time you go through trials, remember that the trials serve to develop you. When you go through good times, that is not when you see Jesus. You don't see Jesus when you are on the deck of a ship and you are eating cannabis. It's wonderful, and you get rest, and it's good for your soul. You don't see Jesus when you are in a good restaurant having a steak. You see Jesus when everyone's gone, when you are broken on the inside, when there's no money, and you go in your room and you say, Lord, if you don't show up, I don't know what I'll do. The fire is often used to bring you to your senses, to sharpen your perspective, and that's when you cling to Jesus and you discover He's right there. You've got to go through the trial before you get the respect. But many of us, as the trials comes, we back down. If you want to see glory in your life, you have to stand. Let's look at what Hebrews says. It doesn't talk about this as a myth. It declares how they got through. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32 to 34. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Can you face the heat that the devil is putting you under? The attack on your mind. Can you quench those flames and those challenges by faith? God is calling you today to take a stand. And there's a war on your soul. And I want to give you some simple things on how to win that war on your soul so that you do not smell like fire. How to win the war on your mind. Number one, recognize that the war on your soul is a war on your faith. When Satan comes to attack you, he has one goal in mind. He doesn't want you to believe in Jesus. He wants you to believe in anything else other than Jesus. In fact, he wants you to believe in him, his values. He wants you to change your allegiance. He wants us to believe in anything else, because in that way he gets worship. But when we believe in Jesus, we are actually focusing on the Son of God, and he can't stand that. That's why there was war in heaven, and he was kicked out of heaven, and he still continues to try and get us to worship him. Sometimes we can face a challenge and war on our souls when we are dealing with people. We can miss the fact that behind people are actually principalities and powers. Do you notice the astrologers are the ones who raised the issue and brought it to the king? The weird thing is, if you read chapter 2 of Daniel, you will see that the astrologers were the very ones who couldn't interpret the vision. So Daniel comes along, he interprets the vision, and he says, don't kill these people. I will give you the interpretation of the vision. He actually protects them, but moments later they turn on him. How many of you have had friends that when they are with you, they are so loving and caring and full of Christian cliches, but behind your back they stab you? When that happens, we start fighting, but the devil is working behind the scenes, sometimes through people, to war on your soul, so that you get discouraged, you get confused, you don't trust Christians anymore, and you become cynical. You become a cynical person who then becomes spiritual. You meet people, they don't go to church, but then they are spiritual. What does that mean? I go to the massage, then they put the oils, then they put the hot rocks on me, and I sit there listening to meditation songs. That's not being spiritual. That's just having a massage. Being spiritual is believing in spiritual matters, to believe in the one God sent, his only son. That's what it means to be spiritual. And we are wrestling not just with people. You notice that the king got furious because the social pressure that comes from authorities, from higher up. Notice how Paul words it in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. He says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Authorities, talking about politicians, people who run government, they are rulers, and they will make your life hard, and they will influence people, but their influence is coming from somewhere else. So the devil is influencing those in leadership, those who don't know God, and they intend influence people, and those people are trying to influence you. You've got to take a stand on what you believe. You can't be all over the place. We've got it too easy. I wonder what we will be like if we were faced with the fire. Satan wars against your faith and my faith in 4 areas that you need to understand. Number 1, he wants to corrupt your faith, or he wants to corrupt our faith. Those of you that have had a computer that's been corrupted, you know that it jumbles everything up. Everything gets mixed up and reinterpreted, and that's what he wants. He wants us to mix it all up. He wants us to believe stuff that's a bit of this and a bit of that. Here's this idol, and here's this person, and here's a bit of that teaching. And the astrologers, they were the ones who attacked the 3 Hebrew boys because they believed in monotheism, just one God, the God of Israel. And so that egged them because they believed in the planets. Just think for a moment. Use your head. A piece of rock in the sky moving around cannot bring a good-looking man with broad shoulders into your life. Neither can it bring a beautiful woman. It's just stop moving around in the sky. And when his one lines up with that one, please, you are worse than primitive people who live in the jungle if you believe that. But you see, when you believe in astrology, you believe in anything. When you believe in idols, you've got all these idols: God of war, fertility, family, crops. And and then you add Jesus to them. One more doesn't matter. But for Christians, there's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. There's no comparison. And for us, it's a different matter. The devil wants to corrupt your faith. All sorts of stuff, mix it all in one. You are under social pressure. The question is, what is it you really believe? Secondly, he wants to conceal our faith. The king asked them, is it true? They had an opportunity to say no, they got it all wrong. They stood up. There was an opportunity under pressure to deny and to hide the facts and to swim out of it. But they took a stand. I want to encourage you to be open about your faith. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. If that offends you, I don't intend to be offensive. But I believe he died and he rose again. If you can show me any religious leader in the world, anywhere, that died and rose, maybe I will change my mind. Today, that's not politically correct. And people will get angry with you. Even tweet that. Next point. Satan wants us to compromise our faith. This is an interesting one. To corrupt it and to mix it up. To get us to shut up is another matter. When Nebuchadnezzar built a statue, he did it because Daniel told him that it's got the head of gold, it's got shoulders of silver, and its feet are iron and clay. And he says the kingdom is a disunited kingdom that will eventually collapse. So what Nebuchadnezzar does is, in order to bring unity to the nation and the kingdom, I'm going to set up one religion and one system so that we can believe the same thing. Then we can all get along nicely. So now when you come as a Christian and you say, sorry, with all due respect, we need to honor you, but we don't believe that. This is when people will always attack. We are always against. No, we are not. Sorry, your unity is not unity. You are trying to create a world system, but that rock is coming and he will smash that system, and you can't prevent that. But we'll be made to look foolish. And many men across history have tried to bring their little brand. It surprises me that people still support communism, because Mao Zedong produced his little red book, and this book was going to unite all the nations and make all people equal, and everyone will have something to eat and it will all work out. But they killed millions of people. Then along came Gaddafi with his little green book. An Italian journalist questioned him on this green book, and he said this book was a guide to the emancipation of man. It was the new gospel of the masses. Your Bible says that Jesus was the word, but this is the word for the third world, and the third world only need my little green book. Where's Gaddafi today? And there were the Nazis who had their whole propaganda machine, their posters, and they exterminated God's people as the enemy, because he saw the prosperity and the strength of the Jews as a negative thing. They made movies, films. They portrayed the Aryan race and racism at its peak, dominating and pushing other people down, making other people feel inferior. And when the fires of Auschwitz were burning and bodies were being incinerated, they blasted loud music through speakers. Isn't that interesting? Trying to create this one system where everyone is equal. We are all equal in terms of rights and value, but we are not equal in terms of achievement. We are all equal in terms of rights and value, but we are not equal in terms of achievement. People have different character and different abilities and different gifts. And the more you try and create a system, the worse it becomes. So here are these three guys. They are moving up in life. They are moving up the corporate and political ladder. They've achieved respect. They've been taken into government. But now they take a stand. They go. We are not going to bow. Even if it looks like we are disuniting, because we can't compromise. Unity is compromise. You can't mix beliefs together that are diametrically opposed to each other, that pull Jesus down to the level of idols. You can't do it. Sorry. It's just logically impossible. You are not trying to divide society. You are not trying to attack anyone. It's just a fact. How can something you make and shape it, and then you call it your God? Heaven is above, and our God made both the earth and the heavens. And then people tell us we are dividing society. No, we are just using our heads, reading the word. What I've noticed is in society, more of this is happening. People refuse to talk about this stuff. We want to avoid all the thorny topics. But the thorny topics are what made Jesus Lord. He's either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. But the devil wants us either to be corrupt, concealed, or compromised. Next point. He wants you to have a confused faith. This is the worst one. This is the worst one. When you've got a confused faith, you actually don't know what you believe. What do you stand for today? Do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Do you believe He is the only way? Do you believe the Bible is the authority on money matters, authority on sexuality, family, on marriage, how we ought to live, how we ought to treat the poor, authority on how we ought to relate? The Bible has to have authority. But we've got this attitude, who knows? To each his own. Imagine if we applied to each his own on the road. To each his own doesn't work in any society. How can it work with the most important matters, which are spiritual? Next point. We need to establish a clear and committed faith. You've got to be clear on what you believe. These guys were absolutely clear. They honored the king, they showed respect to him, but they were categoric about who God was and what they would do. They said he was able to deliver them, and he would deliver them. But if he didn't, they were so clear on what they trusted God for. We trust him with our lives, we trust him for our safety, and we trust him for the year after. And if he doesn't come through, we know he's sovereign. They knew the scriptures. They understood who their God was, and they weren't compromising. When you look at the Apostle Peter, he was at the fire warming himself while Jesus was in the fire being tried. Luke 22 verse 55. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. I don't want to be at the fire. I want to be with you, Lord, in the fire where you are being tried. I want to stand alongside you. And too many of us are, let's see how this turns out. You've got to have an unyielding resolve. I'm with the Lord. I'm committed. I want to encourage you to make up your mind. Be sold out for Jesus. Commitment means your soul is set on him. The enemy is after your soul. My soul is set on him. There's one God. one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Become a committed member of the church. Yeah, but what will people say? Let them speak. I hear you go to Treasure House. Yep, God always speaks to me when I go. But I hear, listen, are you looking for a fault-free church? You won't find one anywhere in the world. But if you come to Treasure House, you find some fruit. Get serious. Commit yourself. Paul said, I know whom I believe, and I am persuaded, committed. Next point, don't be surprised that there's a war against your soul. Don't be surprised that there's a war against your soul. Some of us, when we don't fit in and when people attack us, we are shocked. But when you choose Jesus, you will stand out, and anything that stands out will be attacked. When you fit in, nothing will happen. The moment you stand out, there's going to be an attack on your soul.
Thank you for watching the Ultimate Life television program. We hope you have been blessed by the teaching. Tune in to our next program on the same channel and the same time next week.